We all believe in fairness, right? The idea that success should be earned, not just handed to you. But what if that very ideal, what we call meritocracy, is actually the hidden source of all the anger and division that's tearing our society apart? That's the provocative idea we're going to dig into.
I mean, think about the college admissions scandal. It just blew this whole thing wide open. You had these wealthy parents, and they weren't just cheating the system, they were desperately trying to buy something you're not supposed to be able to buy, the appearance of being deserving. They were literally buying merit. And that, it turns out, was just a symptom of a much, much deeper problem.
So, to really get a handle on that problem, we have to first look at the kind of society this idea of merit has created. It's a society of stark winners and losers, and it comes with these deep, unspoken costs for pretty much everyone. For the last 40 years or so, almost all the rewards from our economy have just flowed straight to the top, and the scale of this gap, it's just staggering. Today, the richest 1% of Americans make more money than the entire bottom half of the country combined. And this isn't just an economic gap. It's a social and a psychological chasm. And a chasm that deep, it fuels two totally different kinds of anger. On one hand, you have a politics of injustice. That's when you blame the system. You say, hey, this thing is rigged. The winners cheated. But meritocracy creates something way more corrosive, a politics of humiliation. Because if you truly believe the winners deserve to win, then what does it say about you if you're left behind? It says your failure is your own fault. And that feeling, that is toxic. So how on earth did we get here? Well, this system wasn't just forced on us. It was sold to us. It was sold as a promise, as the ultimate ideal of fairness. This is what you might call the rhetoric of rising. And what's so wild is that this promise wasn't a partisan thing at all. For 40 years, leaders from both sides of the aisle, from Reagan to Clinton to Obama, they all championed the same basic message: you can make it if you try. Ronald Reagan really made this the cornerstone of his whole political message back in the 80s. He framed it as a core American right, the right to rise purely on your own individual merit. Then, in the 90s, Bill Clinton and other center-left leaders, they picked up the exact same language. The message was unmistakable. Opportunity and responsibility, they go hand in hand. Your success, that's on you. And this is where you can really see how central this idea became. President Obama used this rhetoric of rising more than all of his predecessors combined. He made it the fundamental promise of modern politics. But what if that beautiful promise, the one that says anyone can make it, what if that was the problem all along? And this brings us to the really dark side of that promise, the deep psychological price of living in a world that is constantly telling you that you get what you deserve. So for the winners, this system creates something called meritocratic hubris. It's this tendency to believe that your success is entirely your own doing. Think of a CEO who thinks they earned every single penny of their massive bonus, and they completely forget about the thousands of employees who did the work or the roads and laws that made their business even possible. It just erases any sense of luck or gratitude or debt to the community. And here you see the two faces of merit. Because this logic, it's a double-edged sword. For the winners, it creates pride, this sense of I earned this. But for those who get left behind, that exact same logic creates shame and self-blame. It's a really harsh judgment on anyone who, for whatever reason, doesn't rise to the top. And what makes this all so incredibly cruel is that the promise isn't even true anymore. Back in the 1940s, it was almost a guarantee that a kid would end up earning more than their parents. Today, it's literally a coin toss. That ladder of opportunity, it feels like it's been pulled up. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The place we call the land of opportunity now has less economic mobility than China. Where you start in life is more decisive in the US now. The whole meritocratic promise, it just feels like a bait and switch. So when you combine this fading opportunity with this harsh ethic of it's all on you, what do you get? Well, you get devastating real-world consequences. This is one of the most staggering realities of our time. It's the rise of what economists call deaths of despair. That's death from suicide, drug overdose, and alcoholism. And these deaths are overwhelmingly concentrated among people who don't have a 4-year college degree. It's the tragic final endpoint of feeling like society just doesn't have a place for you anymore. And the craziest part? This was all predicted.
The sociologist who actually coined the term meritocracy back in the 1950s, a guy named Michael Young, he meant it as a warning, as a dystopia. He saw this coming. He knew that if you leave people with nothing and no one to blame for their failure but themselves, it would be a completely crushing moral burden.
And this gives rise to a really nasty, insidious prejudice. At a time when we rightly call out things like racism and sexism, looking down on people with less education has somehow become socially acceptable. It's the prejudice of the credentialed against those without credentials. And it's a direct result of that meritocratic hubris.
Okay, so if this whole system of constant sorting and striving is the problem, what's the solution? Is there a different way to think about what a good society even is?
It really forces us to ask a pretty fundamental question. Is the whole point of our society to create a system where the successful can feel proud of their success? Or is it to create a society where we can all live together as equals, as citizens in the same boat, not just as competitors in a race? Martin Luther King Jr. offered a really powerful alternative vision here. He argued that we should value work not based on the size of the paycheck or the prestige of the title, but on its actual contribution to the common good. You know, the sanitation worker is just as essential to a healthy society as the doctor is. All labor has dignity. So maybe the path forward looks something like this. Instead of being obsessed with arming people for this meritocratic combat, for this endless race to the top, maybe we should focus more on just making life better for everybody. We could focus on renewing the dignity of all kinds of work and rebuilding our sense of a common good. And that leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. For decades, our entire political debate has been about how to make the race to the top fairer. But maybe the real question we need to start asking is whether a society built on a relentless race to the top is even a good society in the first place.